guys, this is Fede here back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about some of my favorites. Yeah, it will be favorites. Uh, Novels, games about the West, right? The American West, the frontier, the American Mexican frontier as well. There's a lot of novels, of books, of songs, of games, of you name it, right? Based on the American West, which is it's funny because if you look at history, it's a period of like 50, 40 years maybe at the most. So it's a short period in history, right? But it's pretty interesting. Uh, I gotta admit, me as a man, as a boy, being raised and living in a city, I have this sort of a novelesque or romanticized version of the West, right? At least when I was younger. So that's why I liked a lot of movies based on the American West. Tombstone, Wyatt Earp, 310, Tiyuma, you name it, right? There's a lot. Even the classics with Howard Hawks or John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, of course. So there's this sort of a mysticism about the West, right? Which it will be funny if you want to revise this sort of a romanticism. You should watch Jodorowsky's movie El Topo, right? So that's a side point. But yeah, we're going to talk about the West today. And for me, what it is the best novel or novels about the West. First, we're going to start with the main two books that I wanted to talk about today. And these are, I don't really have a copy of the other one, but these are Lonesome Dove and Blood Meridian. I really don't have a physical copy of Blood Meridian. I don't know why. I thought I did, but now that I'm thinking about it, I read that years ago on my Kindle, right? So I don't really have a physical copy. I need to get one. All right, so Lonesome Dove and Blood Meridian. I think it's better if we talk about Lonesome Dove first. All right, so Lonesome Dove, and this applies to Blood Meridian as well. They were both published in the 80s, right? 1980s. I believe 1985, if I'm not wrong. Lonesome Dove focuses on a group of I don't want to say outlaws because they're not, but they are some you know some men that push the boundaries on what's legal, right? Let's call it that. So it's about their journey from the west, right, to the north. They wanna grab some land on the north because the north is empty, right? The north of the U.S. at this time is empty, so they can go with their cattle and grab some land and do their living there. It's pretty interesting, Lonesome Dove, because yeah, we see some history, some story regarding the main characters, right? In this case, the main character is, I'm forgetting the name, but I have it here. The main character is Gus McCrae, right? Or McCree. So you follow the gang, right? The classic gang of the West, which always has like a Mexican, a white guy, maybe three, four white guys. Maybe if you want to spice it up, you put an Indian guy there, and you always have also the young kid, right? That's barely starting the world and such. But this book, Lonesome Dove, for me, it's interesting because it's not really about the West story. Of course, that's the setting, that's the context, right? You follow some men around the West, but it also focuses a lot on the experience of women in this period of time, right? In the West. So, what was the experience? If you were a woman and you were not married at the time, and if you didn't own like a business with your husband, what were you doing in the West? Well, you were most likely being a prostitute, right? You were selling your body to others. And Lonesome Dove puts a clear perspective on this point of view, right? On the women living like this, selling their body, trying to find a man, because in this period of time, you needed to get a partner, right? A husband or a man to do an honest living, let's call it like that. If you were a woman, you were on your own. If you didn't have a husband, basically, if you were in the West, that's what I mean. So it's pretty interesting to see here in Lonesome Dove this story about different women who are selling their body, who are doing anything they can to get out of that life. But there are some other perspectives as well. I mean, everyone is different, right? So, for example, we have a character that likes being a prostitute, right? Likes being handled by men and just living that life, having no like responsibilities, sort of, if you want to call it like that. But there's a character that wants to change that, and we have also another character that despises that life, right? But wants to get out of it, and she can't, and she struggles, and she gets abducted. And I'm not going to say names, not to spoil it, but it's pretty interesting. And the gang, the man in this book, I gotta say, if you compare this to Blood Meridian, the gang here in Lonesome Dove is these are the most honorable men that you're gonna meet, right? Especially Gus McCree. He's a great character. He reminds me a lot of Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. And we're gonna talk about it a little bit at the end of this. Um, so yeah, if you want to read, I will say if you're debating yourself in reading, because Blood Meridian and Lonesome Dove, these are like the two major classics, right? If you're debating on which book to read first, I will advise you to read Lonesome Dove first. Why? Because if maybe if you have some triggers of sexual assault or just gruesome things, you're not gonna make it to Blood Meridian. I just gotta tell you right now. So read Lonesome Dove if you're looking for an honest, sort of a realistic portrayal of the West, and it's pretty good as well. And this is a long book, right? This copy that I have is like 950 pages almost. So it's pretty interesting. This book is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. But if you ask me which one I like more, was it the Blood Meridian or Lonesome Dove? I gotta go with Blood Meridian. Whoops. I gotta go with Blood Meridian. And we're gonna talk about Blood Meridian right now. So this book also came out in the 80s. And this focuses a lot on life on the frontier, right? The Mexican American frontier. Lonesome Dove starts like that, right? And it moves on to the north as the story progresses. But Blood Meridian starts on the frontier. It's very gruesome. It's very fucking horrible what's happening at the border. And this is realistic, right? If you go to history, if you read the I don't know the word. Sorry, I don't know the word in English for like the settlements the Jesuits had. Um, but if you read the documents about it, it was horrible, right? And Blood Meridian is every aspect of the West: sexuality, society, war specifically, right? Childhood. All of this is explored in this book, and this is a pessimistic book, right? The protagonist here is the kid, right? It's a man. Well, it's a kid with no name, right? Um, and it's supposedly based on the memoirs of some guy from the government, but it's barely based on that, right? Very loosely based on that. So here, of course, I imagine that a lot of you guys know the judge, right? That's like the image you get when you search for Blood Meridian, and he's just a great character. I mean, he's a horrible demon of a character, right? Rapist, man, killer, just for the heck of it. He's an albino man who's like 7 foot tall or whatever, and it deals with homosexuality as well, and it's pretty interesting. The book. I mean, this I would recommend it. Of course, I love the book, but I love horrible books, right? I love pessimistic books. I love depressive books. That's what I like sometimes. And I wouldn't recommend this if you. I know that people use triggers a lot now. I really, I mean, it's all right if you pay attention to that. I don't like to be spoiled on what's in the book and not, but just be aware that there's sexual assault here. There's gore, of course, a lot of gore. There's child abuse. There's all of the horrible things that you can think of. There are present in this story, and even then, I will recommend it 100%. You know, it's one of the best Western books that I've ever read. It's one of the best books that I ever read. Period. Right, and it's really fun as well. Um, it's not that long as well. Lonesome Dove was almost 1,000 pages. So Blood Meridian is more of a 400 page, 500 at the most book. It's pretty fun. And I wanted, a few minutes ago, I mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2, right? And I mentioned that because for young people, for Gen Z today, uh, Red Dead Redemption, that's their like first impression of the West, right? Due to the gaming community and all of that. And I'm telling you this because I see it every day uh, at my university where I teach. There was a class I was given not long ago where we talk about the West, actually, and the Mexican West, and a little bit about the American West. And most of the guys there were aware of the time period, the West, thanks to Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Thanks to the story of Arthur Morgan and and the gang and Dutch and all of these characters. And I played the game. I put in it like 80 hours, I believe, so I finished the game and everything. And it's a great story, but what it doesn't tell you is, of course, what you're going to see in Blood Meridian and Lonesome Dove. I mean, Arthur Morgan, the protagonist, yeah, he's an honorable man. If you want to do it like that, if you can now, you can follow the low honor path. But still, the main story portrays him as an honorable man, right? And for example, in the game, you get to go to a women's rally protest, right? As a supporter, you get to actually kill some members of the KKK that were gathering in the forest and such. So there's a pretty clear message from the present put into the game, right? And that's all right, right? I don't have an issue with that, but that's not the real West, right? The real West was what Cormac McCarthy did with Blood Meridian. It's what Larry McMurtry did with Lonesome Dove. That's the real West. I mean, a, a period of history should not accommodate to the morals of our present, right? That will be anachronistic. We cannot ask that from a novel, I think. If you're reading a historical novel especially, you need to be aware that this was a horrible time, right? It was a movie that I like to recommend to my students is Bone Tomahawk. I really don't remember really the name of the director, but it was the protagonist is Scott Russell, right? It's a very gruesome novel that reminded me a lot of Blood Meridian, right? So yeah, it's a really good movie. But what I'm trying to say here is that, and this applies to all of historical fiction, right? History is not a happy place, you know. History will not accommodate to the morals that we have right now. So whenever we're reading historical fiction, we need to be aware that whether we like it or not, there's going to be, you know, sexual assault, there's going to be murder. Because throughout history, the feminine figure, and with this, I'm not just talking about women. I'm talking about ancient Greece with this symposiums that they made. I made a video about the symposium some time ago. So I'm talking about the weakest figure in a society, right? It's always going to get abused. Um, so I'm not saying that you should enjoy that or that you should look for it in a book, right? I'm just saying that if you're reading historical fiction, most likely it's going to be present because that was the way of the world. It was horrible. That's what I tell my students that study that history is not this tale of knights and outlaws, with revolvers at their hips, and that's it. No, history goes beyond that, right? The human race is horrible, horrible. We shouldn't have hope in history, in studying history. We will find honorable men, of course. We will find honorable women. We will find all of this stuff in history that makes the human race elevate to a point, right? But we will also find more often horrible people. Uh, People that's obsessed with money, people that's obsessed with sex, people that's obsessed with killing each other, people that's obsessed with war. You know, and that's history. I'm not saying it's bad or it's wrong or it's right or good. I'm just saying, you know, we should use a different lens when looking at history. We shouldn't be using the morals of our present to judge history. That's the main thing I wanted to say. Sorry, I've been talking for like 20 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, I just wanted to mention quickly those two books. And if you want to start reading westerns, or if you want to get into some of the western novels, I will say really that these are the best two novels to start. Either Blood Meridian, either Lonesome Dove, or one interesting thing that happened at university with my students was that they played the game first, right? Red Dead Redemption 2 in this case. And then some of my students, from what I told them, started reading the novel Blood Meridian, or one of the students actually read Lonesome Dove, but most read Blood Meridian. And they loved the books, right? Because they loved Red Dead, of course, but the books give you a more real, immersive story on the context, right? So the three are pretty good. The novels, the game, whatever. There's good things out there, and these are one of the best. So yeah, that was the video, guys. I just wanted to recommend you those two books just to give you some sort of compass, right, on what to start reading. That was it. We're gonna see you on the next video.